Hi, I'm Barry Craig. Coming up next on the Union Label will be a conversation with Jeff Wiggins, President of the Western Kentucky Area Council, AFL-CIO. We'll be talking to Jeff about what the council does. Welcome to the program, Jeff.
Thanks for having me again.
Tell us exactly what the Western Kentucky Area Council, AFL-CIO, is and what it does.
Well, we're mainly a governing body that just we're there for all the unions to come and meet, and we can discuss our problems, discuss our future, discuss how we're going to grow, what's going on with the other unions, and that's mainly what we do. We handle politics, we handle legislation, we make recommendations to the state boards. That's mainly what we do. We're just kind of like an overseer, an umbrella over all the different unions in Western Kentucky.
We had Bill Londergan on the program recently, of course, who's the president of the Kentucky State AFL-CIO, and he described the Kentucky State AFL-CIO as sort of a union of unions. In other words, an organization of independent unions for the whole state. That's pretty much what the area council is, isn't it, for Western Kentucky?
Correct. Correct.
And about how many counties does the area council encompass?
I do have them listed here. I have McCracken County, Ballard County, Carlisle County, Hickman, Fulton, Graves, Callaway, Marshall, Livingston, Crittenden, Caldwell, Lyon, and Trigg counties.
So basically it's the Jackson Purchase and the counties close to the Purchase in the Western Penny-Rock.
Correct.
Involved in that. Now, the unions that are involved, there are industrial unions, public employee unions, craft unions, all together in one organization.
Correct.
You meet once a month?
Yes, we meet every Monday, first Monday of the month at 7 o'clock, and the executive board meets at 6 o'clock.
Okay.
Which I do have a list of officers of the executive board.
If you would like to read that, that would be all right.
Benny Adair is the vice president.
And he is?
He is from IEM 1720. That's the Machinists Union. Mm-hmm. Hardy Williams, he's from the Retirees Council.
He's former
the president.
machinist.
Yeah, he's a former machinist. Donna Steele is from local PACE 5550. She's the financial secretary. Sergeant Arms is you, of course, Barry Craig from AFT 6083. David Childers from the Machinist is he's one of the trustees. Bonnie Edwards, she's from Ames. She's one of the trustees. Wayne Chambers, a steelworker, as am I. He's one of the trustees. Lewis Hicks is a PACE member. He's from the paper mill, Local 5680. George Wiggins, retired Union firefighter, and Lewis Hicks is our COPE director. And he's also our recipient of the W.C. Young Award that we're going to have April the 14th at the PACE Local 5550 on Old Cairo Road at 6 o'clock.
Mm-hmm. That's a good thing to bring up because I was going to bring it up. The W.C. Young Award is, of course, the highest honor that the area council bestows. It is named for W.C. Young, the late W.C. Young, who was a national labor and civil rights leader from Paducah. You knew W.C. Young. What did he mean to you personally?
He was a great role model. He was a kind, gentle, loving Christian man that believed in working people, and that's what he means to me. He was a great role model to learn from. Mm-hmm. And of course, I've had lots of great role models, and you know, I keep bringing the same names up like Bill Hack, and I've learned a lot from Larry Sanderson and Gary C. and some of the others, and Don Mitchell, and there's so many you can't mention. You know, there's Bob Delaney and there's Joe Seals. I learned a lot from them. I learned a lot from my district leader Ernest Thompson. I learned a lot from my sub-district leader Frank Pittman. I mean, you know, there's just so many people to name that you watch, you learn, and you try to pattern yourself and do things the right way like these people do.
Mm-hmm. Hearing you read the list of officers, one thing all of the officers have in common is we're all, shall we say, not young. How do you get young people involved in the council, in their local union, in the movement?
Barry, I'm going to tell you frankly, the only way you're going to get young people involved in anything today is if you show them how it's going to hurt their pocketbook. You've got to break it down for them. I mean, you know, you've got to care. You've got to care about the people you work for, the people you work with, and you got to care about senior citizens. You got to care about your future, your children. You got to care about the middle class of America. And when it's all said and gone, and then maybe you'll get more young people to volunteer to do things like that. It's not only young people. We have a lot of members, older members, that are not involved and don't want to do anything. I mean, you know, it's not a good old boy country club. It's a work in progress, and we're working all the time to improve ourselves, to better the middle class of America. I mean, you know, labor built the middle class of Western Kentucky. They built the middle class of America. And when it's all dead and gone, then we'll have to worry about it then. And there'll be a lot of people that'll want to be involved in things like that to get back what they've got. But it's harder to get it back after you lose it all.
When did you get involved in the union movement? When did you when did you get your first union card?
I got my first union card. I've had a union card. I've been a steelworker for 22 years, which we're fixing to merge with the PACE International Union, so I'll be a USW member then, which has a big name, which I can't tell you what it all means, but I know the new initials will be USW.
Well, of course, PACE was a merger of the old Paper Workers Union and the old Oil, Chemical, and Atomic Workers Union.
Correct.
And, of course, the steel workers, you all brought the rubber workers in there.
Well, it's real interesting. If it weren't for the mine workers, there wouldn't be steel workers in America. We're actually a branch off the mine workers. And we were formed, the president of the mine workers decided to form like a steel union. And our roots go back way deep.
To the 30s.
There's a lot of mergers that's went on. I mean, we merged with District 50 of the miners, which was like Eastern Kentucky, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia. A lot of they had a construction bunch, and that was District 50. We've merged with ABG, American Brick and Glass Workers, the upholstery workers. We're a makeup of a lot of people. You know, it's just like, it's some ways just like the international AFL-CIO, made up of all different kind of people.
And that brings up an interesting point. There has been quite a debate in the union movement. In fact, it's even been talked about at the Area Council, a proposal to merge unions into about 16 mega unions, it was called. Now, the steelworkers, obviously, you all are an amalgam of lots of groups. How do you feel about this merger plan?
Well, that's a way that you lose members, to me, is the way you lose people that are active. My local union was a local of 150 people, and then we amalgamated to a local of 1,000. And out of the 150 in my plant, there was always 30 or 40 people you could count on to be at union meetings, you could count on to be involved. But when we start downsizing and forming one big union, then people lose their identity and they think they don't matter anymore. And really, it's not that. It's just cost effective is what it is. I mean, there's no union member that's more important than the other union member to me. Or there's no international union that's more important than any other international union to me. It takes us all to come together to form the AFL-CIO.
Now, this is being pushed by the Service Employees International Union, that group. And there was some opposition to it. I think the president of the steelworkers was cool to the idea. The president of the machinists was cool to the idea. But it's a real, and of course the theory behind this was there'd be larger groups and have more political power. How do you think this will play out?
Well, I think I don't really know how it's going to play out. I wrote a letter on behalf of the Western Kentucky Area Council on things I feel. There has been a push on the national level to merge councils, to have you're separate councils, but to merge into one big council that answers to the state. And I just think once you start merging and putting people together, then you just lose all total identity whatsoever. I'm not really for forming these big, huge mega unions, because I think people need their identities. They need a little pride in their international, and they need a little pride in themselves. And that's what makes a good union person, is a little pride in your job. I mean, we go out, we expect to do a day's work for a day's pay, and that's our job. And all we ask in return is decent benefits with decent wages and a little dignity on the job, and a good education for our children, and a little dignity for those that retire and go on.
Big challenge faced by labor in America is the shipping of plants and work overseas, as well as outsourcing. Continental General in Mayfield, I believe I read that the production in Mayfield is going to Brazil, the Czech Republic, and I believe Malaysia, low-wage countries. How do you compete with that?
Well, Barry, the simple fact is, are the prices any cheaper on these products once they come back to the United States? No. It's not about how cheap labor is to the consumer. It's about how cheap labor is to the one that owns the plant or the one that owns the business, because the simple matter of fact is the prices are not going down on products. They keep going up and up and up and up. And it used to be back in 1970, in the early 70s, that a CEO made 50 times more than the hourly wage of the average employee at his business. You want to take a guess at what it is now? It's 583% more than the hourly wage earner at his business. And you know what caused the Great Depression? You being a history teacher, you know what caused the Great Depression.
People couldn't afford to buy.
People couldn't afford to buy their products. And if the trends keep going like they are, we won't have a middle class in America, and we'll be back to where we were in the 1920s.
One of your sister steelworkers, Viola Melton Winings from Providence, came to the council some months ago, and we were talking, and she said, you know, the people who buy all of these products are workers. If you keep sending jobs and keep sending production out of the country and keep impoverishing workers, who's going to buy all this stuff? And that, of course, is what happened during the Great Depression. It's very difficult. The steel workers at Mayfield, that the plant is all but closed. About 200 people now working over there, and basically Continental told the union, we'll build our tires as cheaply as we want, where we want to build them. And then you deal with the social impact of that. Not only lost livelihoods, but what does that do to Mayfield as a community? Used to be an old expression in the state AFL-CIO, union wages buy more.
Correct.
And so how do you fight these plants that move production overseas? How do you stop that from happening?
Well, we have to pass laws. We have to pass laws. We have to have people in office that'll pass laws that'll stand up for working people in this country. We'll be devastated if something ever happens out there at USAC, this community. We'll be devastated with that. I mean, you know, Paducah is on the verge. It's just teetering. A few plant closings here. This Western Kentucky, we've lost over 4,000 jobs in Western Kentucky. Dura Automotive shut down in Fulton City, Fulton County. You can imagine what impact that played on that town, that small of a town there. 400 good paying jobs. I mean, we have Goodyear Tire, and they're hiring a few back, but they also have about a third of their members, which is probably about 800 members that live in Western Kentucky.
Oh yeah,
especially and when they have big layoffs, that's felt also. That's felt also in Western Kentucky. You know, they talked today about Social Security and things like that. I've got a quick fix for that. Put America back to work. you put America back to work, and then there'll be more money in that Social Security fund, and we keep our hands out of it, then it'll grow, and it'll be there for people when they retire. You want to make communities grow, you want to make your area grow, put people back to work. I mean, you know, put them back to work. I'm not talking about $5 and $6 an hour jobs. I'm talking about good paying jobs, people that can earn a living for their family and can support school districts and can support cities and can support counties. That's what it takes. That's what it takes.
These are, of course, economic issues, pocketbook issues, checkbook issues. But as you know, in the past years, the labor movement has been divided by appeals to social issues. Larry Sanderson calls them the 3 Gs: God, guns, and gays. You've seen it happen in your local. How do you combat that when people vote on social issues and not pocketbook issues?
Well, you can't really combat that because people are going to vote their morals. And people have the wrong conception of the labor movement. Do we not say the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag, "In God we trust," every meeting, before every meeting? Do we not lead off our meeting with a prayer? And I have never had an objection to either one of those when we've had a union meeting. Most people that I know in the labor movement are God-fearing people, you know. Myself, I'm a Christian. I believe in Jesus Christ as my Savior and everything like that. But I understand the big issues about what supports my family. I've always told people that there's 4 priorities in my life: God, my country, my family, and my union. And the reason why the union's up there in the top 4 is because it helps me support the other things that go on in my life. I mean, we're a we care about people. We want people to have a better way of life in Western Kentucky. It's not about we want this politician or we want this politician or we want this piece of legislation. We want to get legislation passed where everybody could have a decent job, everybody could make decent wages, and we could all have the finer things in life that we want. And to me, today, the younger members are more focused on what they can get out of life than what they can put back into life. You have to be able to be willing to put things back in to reap the benefits. And it's like in the Bible said, the fields are bountiful, but the workers are few. And that's the way it is in the labor movement too. The fields are out there, they're bountiful, but we have very few laborers that want to work in the labor movement.
We've talked about this before, and it's not just labor. People today don't seem to get involved in things like they used to. People don't go to church as often. They don't go to club meetings as often. They don't go to union meetings as often. How do you get people back to the union meetings? I talk to union presidents, you do too. You're talking 15, 20% maybe to a monthly union meeting. How do you get people involved in their union again?
Well, you can scare them back into a union meeting. That'd be the first thing you do is tell them you're going to raise their dues, and then you'll have a large crowd show up. Or you can tell them that something's going to happen at the plant, but you don't really want to lie to people, and I don't think that's the way to do it. I mean, you've got to get people interested. You got to get people more involved and motivated to get off their rear ends to get back to work. You know, I mean, you know, it's good while it lasts, but it's not going to be there forever. And you know, labor movement has to look at new avenues. I mean, if manufacturing leaves, then we have to go more into the service industry. I know the steelworkers ourselves have nurses in Eastern Kentucky. We have hospitals and things, and you know, they'll take whoever they can get, whatever they can get, and we're all got the same common goal: is fighting to keep the middle class going in America. That's what it's all about.
So you see traditional industrial unions like steelworkers going into non-traditional areas like clerical or more white-collar work as opposed to blue-collar work. Let me give you an example. Gerald Watkins, who we know teaches American government here, told me before an election that one of his students came to him and said, Professor Watkins, he said, I'm conflicted. My union says I should vote for this candidate because of this, but my preacher says I should vote for this candidate because of that. What do I do? And of course Gerald said, well, you make up your own mind about that. Do you hear that sort of thing from people saying that there's somehow a conflict between what the union's saying and what the minister is saying in some cases?
Of course. America is very divided. You know, today in America, I don't see the love and compassion for people that we used to have in this country. It's more, this country has become more hate, more me, you know, and that's not how you can build a good country and a moral country, is by preaching hatred toward your brother, hatred toward this. I don't know about some people, but my Bible tells me that if I have a problem with a brother, I should pray for him, not go out and preach hate about him. You should pray for your brother and love your brother and your fellow man, no matter what they do, no matter what their sins. God loves all sinners. Jesus Christ loved all sinners, and He wants to bring them into the fold. And you're not going to bring them into the fold by hating them. Mm-hmm. You got to love your fellow man and just keep going. I mean, you know, we all have disagreements and we all have things that we don't like about each other, but we're gonna have to work together. Mm-hmm. In the end. Mm-hmm. That's the big picture.
Mm-hmm. Some weeks ago, you got a request from the National AFL-CIO for your input into what the future of American labor ought to be. Can you share with us basically the outline of the letter that you wrote to the National AFL-CIO?
Well, basically, I give you a copy of the letter. I told them that what we need to do on the international level, and they can fire me if they want to. It's, you know, they won't find anybody else to do what I do. But basically, it's about what I'm talking about. It's about egos. We have too many people in too many positions in this country and in the labor movement and in any other movement that you have that have egos that are bigger than themselves, and that's what's bringing this country down. I mean, it's what's bringing the labor movement down. It's what's bringing this country down, is egos. We're all just going to have to get along and do the right thing for the working men and women of this country. I mean, if you take all the load out from under the bottom of a weight and put it on top, sooner or later it's going to topple over because there's nothing underneath it to support it. It takes working men and women to support businesses. It takes working men and women, good paying jobs, to support communities, states, and the country. And like I said, you know, the crisis with Social Security today is simply the fact that there's a lot of Americans not making the wages they used to make and are not being able to support that program like it was supported. Mm-hmm. And it's not about privatization or whatever you want to, whatever you want to talk about. It's about putting America back to work at good paying jobs, sound jobs, building stronger communities with good paying jobs.
And that, of course, takes politics. One of Larry Sanderson's, one of expressions I've heard him use over and over again, it is about politics. It's always about politics, but yet union members, like a lot of people, don't even bother to vote. What percentage, for example, of union members vote? Have you got any statistics on that?
I know on my local that I have, at my local union, there's 80% registered.
That's
and probably
pretty high.
60. Yeah, that's pretty high. We put on a registration drive every year. Don't care what you register as. It doesn't matter to me what you register as. It's my job to show you why you should vote the way you vote. I mean, I can tell you how to vote, but it's not my job to tell you how to vote. It's my job to show you why you need to vote and who you need to vote for. I sit on the state board of the Kentucky State AFL-CIO, representing the steel workers. We every year, every election cycle, we go up there and we do endorsement of candidates. I endorse Democrats, I endorse Republicans, I endorse other people. It doesn't matter as long as they're supporting labor, and that's the whole big picture to me. Is people that support labor is the people that we support.
Nationally, in elections, if we get a 50% turnout in a presidential election, that's a cause for celebration. How do you get, again, this is a democracy. It's a representative democracy, a republic. We elect people to do what we want them to do in Washington or Frankfurt. And if they don't, we unemploy them. But again, younger people especially, isn't it tough to get them motivated? They don't see a connection because, well, the older you are, the more likely you are to vote.
Well, I can tell you, I went through a training program, and part of it is just think about this. The air that you breathe is involved in politics. The mattress that you sleep on that has the tag on it, that's involved in politics. You get in your car, the gas is regulated by the federal government, that's politics. The road you drive on, that's politics. There's nothing that doesn't affect you in your life that is not somehow involved with politics. Nothing that you do. There's nothing free in this world, except for one thing. And we all know that the love of Christ is the only free thing there is in this world.
But again, and it seems so obvious to you and to me, and I vote all the time, and you vote all the time, but for so many people, that's a tougher sell.
Right. It is a tough sell. There's a lot of people there's a lot of people that just don't think that their vote matters. But if you look at the last few elections, even on the president's race, it has been so close, so close. And a few votes here and a few votes there, one or two more people come out in each district and voted, it could have changed the whole election, could have changed the whole face of politics in this country.
In the time we have left, one of the activities of the council is we have a newsletter once a month. We also have a website which is maintained by Carla Draffin here at school. And
Yes.
she never gets any credit for it, and I think it's time to give her some credit.
Thank you, Carla, for all the fine work and wonderful work you do. I appreciate the job she does for me. She'll email me every now and then and tell me, check this out, and I go to the website. She does a wonderful job. And thank you for being the supporter of the
You're
web
most kind.
page. And let me give you that web address. It's WKYAFL-CIO.org. And all the web pages are up there, which I have a great historian that writes my web page for me. And he writes my newsletters for me, Barry Craig. And every once in a while I put a little article in there. And I appreciate you for writing the web page of the newsletter for the area council.
I appreciate you saying that. Once again, in just the few seconds we have left, the council meets every...
Now, we meet the first Thursday of every month at 7 p.m. at the Western Kentucky Area Council, down off of the Loop on 3rd Street.
And the executive board meets at 6.
The executive board meets at 6. So I'll see you next Thursday
I'll be there.
of the month.
I'll be there. I'm Barry Craig. We're out of time. Thank you for joining us. My guest today was Jeff Wiggins, president of the Western Kentucky Area Council, AFL-CIO. We'll see you next time.